Welcome to Profit Sharing in the Real World. I'm your host, Danny Murphy. This podcast features commentary from Dick Erickson, author of Profit Sharing in the Real World, which is available at Amazon.com. In today's episode, Dick is going to be talking about a new word for us, subsidiarity. Subsidiarity. Dick, it's good to see you again.
Thank you, Danny. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this pillar. That it's a unique pillar, and it so enhances profit sharing. And where I go with that in my mind after experiencing it was there's a lot of times in businesses we have mid management that is there to kind of look after the troops at the lower levels and supervising and all that. And what this takes on is why don't we try to delegate to them decisions that can be made if they have the wherewithal. And what it does, where it comes back into profit sharing, it eliminates some people that you don't need to supervise. The other thing, it helps them grow as management and leader type people.
Now, we were recently in a meeting with a lot of other business people, and when you said subsidiarity, he said he wondered if that was a real word, and it turns out it is a real word. And let's go over the definition. Subsidiarity, or some might say subsidiarity, I'm not sure which, is the principle of allowing the individual members of a large organization to make decisions on issues that affect them, rather than leaving those decisions to be made by the whole group or somebody at the top.
Yes. And that's been such an issue. And to streamline a company, and then of course it comes back into profit sharing, is if you can get a leaner group, if you will, not to take away from employment, but with the idea of being able to compete better and have something thrown off that, such as profitability, that it's not needed for growth and sustain the company, that extra, that can be shared with the employees. And if they know that's there, I mean, they just enhances, and subsidiarity has such a big part of that.
A big part of it, and a big part of your success with profit sharing came from the fact that employees were keeping an eye on each other. It eliminated the need for that extra layer of management, which is an expensive layer.
It is, absolutely. It's when you look at the expense of that, the hourly wage for a supervisor is always more than it is at the troops below that. So that we got to the point that in our company, that issue brought things to the table that we did not know could happen, and it did. It just made us more efficient.
So they're keeping an eye on each other, a close eye, because nobody wanted a slacker on their team. They knew that a slacker would reduce their profit sharing check.
Absolutely. The other thing, Danny, that this brought out was they started thinking more like a leader, like not a super, to help out. And that generated people, because I was in an industry trying to find management leaders was hard to find, because a lot of these guys are, it's a blue collar industry. And all of a sudden I started seeing guys pop out because of subsidiarity, that all of a sudden I said, they're right here. I don't have to go out and recruit someone who knows nothing about this industry versus someone that we're generating from the bottom and they're bubbling up. And what an asset.
So you didn't have a handful of guys walking around with a clipboard and a pencil?
No, none of that. So
now you were in the tire business, and in some cases you put a new set of tires on a car and it turns out one of the tires is a little bit out of round. What happened? It makes a noise, doesn't it?
Well, it'll vibrate.
Vibration.
Yeah.
And people notice that.
Well, from the experience of a person out there and doing that, he would see that, and you'd say, if you see that, and in using back to subsidiarity, moving that decision as both, here's a guy that's got it on a machine and it's there. Why do I have to stop everything and go ask someone, should I or shouldn't I? No, he knows that this could be improved and he needs to make that decision right then. and it's going to sometimes stop the production for a minute or two, but instead of it being 10 to 15 minutes to get a supervisor over there, he makes that decision for whom we're up and going again.
And so you're not taking the manager away from the counter. He's able to deal with customers.
Yes.
Tire changer who knows when a tire's out of run.
Yes.
He should know, right?
Yeah.
That's part of his expertise. So the tire changer is able to make that decision without an approval from a manager or an assistant manager.
Right.
It's better for the company. It's better for the customer, faster.
Absolutely. And it's really for the customer. You want that. You want it that when you do your job, let's do it right. And the closer we are to the problem to get it solved, the quicker it'll turn around.
Now, to see if a tire is out of round, do you have to remove it? You got to put it on a tire machine?
No, it's spinning, and you can kind of see it. There's a little wiggle to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And every machine's a little different, not every machine, but machines, some spin horizontally, some do laterally, if you will. But the point was there was ways of checking that. And you could just hold something up close to the tires that spins. Yeah.
Now, managers and executives at high levels, they don't have time really or energy to be dealing with the trivialities of the day. They need to be thinking about the big things. And so subsidiarity, that enables people at a lower level to make the decisions that they're capable of making without wasting other people's time.
Right. So the thing, when you really get into it, if you think about it, even guys at upper levels, their specialty might not have anything to do with what's happening on the line.
Well, don't we know it?
Yeah. And the point is that guy on the line, he's dealing with it every day, every hour, hour by hour. He knows. He gets to a point after a short period of time of how this should be done. And give him the authority to stop it or fix it when it needs to be done. This is what subsidiarity, in our case, was so important.
So subsidiarity is one of the four pillars of a successful business that you've been talking about a lot. And this particular pillar applies to employees from the front line to the executive office. Tell me about that.
Well, it has to be definitive to work. You gotta know where the issues are, that decisions have to be made, because if you didn't have it, you'd be running down there as a leader and trying to get things fixed at time. That these guys work with it day in and day out. But that has to be thought of. It's got to be structured that these particular people have the authority to make a decision at this lower level. So there is a little bit to it. You have to think, you get to know your people, who can do this at this point. The great part about this, what I found out after a period of time, that was the starting point only. Pretty soon, these same people, by giving them authority early in the game, in the front, was they became the leaders within their structure after a period of time. Sometimes the store manager, in our case, store managers, came from this here, but we found out their abilities when we gave them this decision at the lower level.
So managers, store managers at Sun Tire, they had the power and the ability to make a lot of decisions pertaining to their store.
Right.
But there were probably other areas where they needed to get an approval from you.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, that same deal had to be defined where they could make decisions. And so there's things that, to the point of refunds and stuff, instead of running to me for a refund and there's something happened for good reason, and you say, I need to make a decision. They had the power to make that decision on a refund, for instance, or something didn't work out. Just things that normally in a lot of companies you'd run that all the way back into management and hold up a customer that should have been taken care of right at the point, and get a bad taste in the mouth that something didn't work out, and I got held up. Why get held up? Make the decision.
And guess what will happen with that customer? They're going to the other tire store a half a mile away.
That's right.
Next time.
Yes. And so you want to give that authority as low as possible all the time. I don't like the word lower, but at a level that it needs to be made.
So in this system, some people may think that this type of thing ought to be happening in a business to begin with. What about that?
Well, yes and no. Employee as a whole, no one wants to make decisions that could hurt them if they didn't have the authority to do this.
Sure.
And so what you want to do is find out those places that problems are going to happen periodically or something new, but that they have the authority to make a decision, to keep the deal running, keep it going. All the things that are for a good business to get better is they've got to keep things going. And at times there's going to be breakdowns. The lower we can make that decision, the sooner we get up and going again. So it needs to be thought out where those areas are that need, for sure, the employee gets the authority to make that decision. But that has to be acted on.
So this theory of subsidiarity, it really flies in the face of, say, micromanagers who want to have their hand in everything.
Right.
What about that?
Well, the problem with that is it makes your employees under him just stand around and wait. When there's a problem, it's like, I'll just have to wait on the boss for that. And so many times it could be handled right there. If they have the authority to say, you can make that decision. You don't have to wait for the boss to show up on that one, or those 5, these 10 things, or whatever it is. It needs to be identified enough so he feels, first of all, he got to know he has the authority, because he likes his work. He wants to stay here. So he doesn't want to step on his toes by making a decision he has no authority to do. And a micromanager can be a problem to that. He wants to be, but it just slows the whole system down, and that becomes inefficiency.
And that costs money.
Amen.
So instead of doing the big decisions and keeping an eye on the ball that way, it's really a waste of time, not only his, but the employees, to be able to be a micromanager and trying to keep your hand in everything.
That's right. Absolutely. So it's a win-win to this subsidiary issue. It is a win-win.
So, Dick, the bottom line of subsidiarity is that it fosters greater local responsibility, and it can lead to more effective and responsive solutions to problems. Tell me about that.
Well, that's in a nutshell. Anytime you can speed up solving problems, and the people that are on the line are the folks that are in the middle of it. But they got to have the authority to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So the real issue is that they have been given the authority to make those kind of solutions, and to solve it so that they come out with a favorable improvement to what they're going through. So anyhow, yeah, but the bit of to really make it work, they have to have the authority, and it'll just speed up everything. And it turns out that it makes us more efficient. And in the big picture, there's more to share with the guys because we are more efficient.
And that's what it's about. More efficient, more profitable.
Yep.
Bigger profit sharing checks. They got to love that.
Yes.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you again, Dick. You've been listening to Profit Sharing in the Real World. I'm Danny Murphy, your host. Dick Erickson is the author of the book, Profit Sharing in the Real World, which is available at Amazon.com. If you have a question for Dick to address in a future podcast, or if you have a story about how you've seen profit sharing work in the real world, please send me an email, Danny@successstory.biz. That's Danny@successstory.biz. Thank you for listening.
Okay.